In this session, we're going to improve the performance of the static website we hosted in the previous session by using AWS CloudFront, which is Amazon's content delivery network service. We will also run a simple test to see if CloudFront really makes a difference. From the Management Console, let's move on to the CloudFront. On the CloudFront page, click Create a CloudFront distribution. First, we will set basic distribution options. For the name of the distribution, let's type Lab S3 Web Hosting. For the distribution type, since we are hosting a web page, let's choose Single Website or App. If you have your own domain, you can use in the Custom Domain option, but we will skip this. Let's skip the tags and click Next. Next, we will specify the origin of this CloudFront distribution. For the origin type, we choose the source where CloudFront will fetch and cache content from. Since we are hosting a website from the S3 bucket, let's choose Amazon S3. For the S3 origin, click Browse S3 and choose the S3 bucket we used in the previous session. Leave the origin path blank since we didn't create any subfolders in the bucket. In the settings, we can configure detail options of the distribution. If you remember, when we create a S3 bucket, it blocks all public access by default. And if you want to allow the private S3 bucket access to the CloudFront, you can check this option. Then AWS will update the policy and use the private bucket for the CloudFront distribution. Since our bucket is already public, we will uncheck this option. In the origin settings, you can customize how the CloudFront can connect to the origin, using a custom header or an origin shield. When you click Customize Origin Settings, you can see additional options. If you want to include custom headers in requests to the origin, you can add here, but we will not use in this session. Origin Shield is an option which helps reduce the load on the origin by routing requests through a designated AWS location. Origin Shield is an extra caching layer in Amazon CloudFront. And this reduces the number of requests that go all the way to your origin, making it more efficient and helping your site load faster. We will skip this as well and choose Use Recommended Origin Settings. Click Next. Next, you will see the option to attach a web application firewall. If you want to enable security protections like AWS Web Application Firewall, you can select that option. In this session, we will choose Do Not Enable Security Protections and Continue. Click Next. Review the settings, and if everything is okay, click Create Distribution. When you go back to the CloudFront Distributions page, you will see that the new distribution is now in Enabled and the deployment is in progress. It may take a few minutes for CloudFront to finish deploying and caching the content to edge locations around the world. Let's wait until the status changes. Once the deployment is complete, it means your content is now available at multiple edge servers globally. Click the distribution, and you will see many tabs and options where we can configure this CloudFront distribution. Before we move on, we will go over some important options of CloudFront distribution. First, in the General tab, click the Edit button in the Settings option. In the Settings page, there are many important options you can configure for the CloudFront distribution. We only need to change the default root object for this session, but let's go over each option. There's an option called Anycast Static IP List. This feature lets you assign fixed IP addresses to your CloudFront distribution. By default, CloudFront assigns a domain name that resolves to IP addresses managed by AWS, which can change over time. But if you need fixed IPs for firewall restrictions, this option can help. This is a paid option, and we will not use it in this session. Next is Price Class. This determines which edge locations CloudFront will use. Using all edge locations gives the best performance but may increase cost. If your account is eligible for the free tier, some edge locations may be free for low usage, but using all edge locations could still generate minor charges. But it will be very small, so you don't have to worry about it. So we will choose Use All Edge Locations to get the best performance. If you're using a custom domain name, you can enter it in the Alternate Domain Name section. But we will leave this blank. Next is SSL certificates. If you have a custom SSL certificate from ACM, you can select it here. But we will not use this in this session. Next is supported HTTP versions. CloudFront supports HTTP 1.1 by default. So let's leave the default settings with HTTP 2 as they are. Next is the default root object. This is the file CloudFront will return when a user accesses your site without specifying a file name, for example, when they just visit the domain. Let's enter mycar.html just like we did when setting up the S3 static website. Keep the IPv6 setting as it is, and click Save. Go back to the CloudFront distribution screen. You will see that deployment is in progress. It may take a few minutes for CloudFront to update and cache the content to edge locations. While we wait, let's check two more tabs, Origins and Behaviors. Select the Behaviors tab, select the behavior, and click Edit. When we talk about behaviors in AWS CloudFront, we're talking about rules. These rules tell CloudFront how to handle different types of requests. Think of it like this. A behavior is your way of saying if a request comes in like this, then handle it that way. The behavior has a few key settings. First, the path pattern. This defines which requests the rule will apply to. Default is every request, and let's leave it as is. Next, we can see origin and origin groups. This is the location where CloudFront will fetch the content from. It could be an S3 bucket, an application load balancer, or even an external server. The S3 bucket is already selected, and let's leave this. Compress objects automatically is an option which reduces the file size during transfer. It's already set to yes, so we will keep it. Next is the Viewer Protocol Policy. This controls whether users can access your content over HTTP, HTTPS, or both. We will select HTTP and HTTPS to allow both protocols. Then we choose the HTTP methods to allow. We will select GET and HEAD, which are the most commonly used methods for reading content. Next is Restrict Viewer Access. This is used if you want only authorized users to access your content. Since we want this to be publicly accessible, we will select No. Now let's move to the cache key and origin request settings. A cache key is like an ID that CloudFront uses to find stored content. When a user makes a request, CloudFront checks if it already has a copy of that content using this key. If it finds a match, it's called a cache hit, and CloudFront delivers the content from its nearest edge location. This makes the site load faster and reduces the load on the origin server. If there's no match, CloudFront fetches the content from the origin, saves it in the cache, and delivers it to the user. We will use the recommended settings here. If you want to customize cache behavior using headers, you can use legacy cache settings. Next, we have the Response Headers policy, which lets you control what headers CloudFront sends back to the client. We will leave it as is for this session. Function associations is an option which allows you to run small pieces of code at different points in the request lifecycle. To make this session simple, we will skip this. Click Save Changes. Next, select the Origins tab, select the origin, and click Edit. Origin domain is the source that CloudFront goes to when it needs to fetch the original file. This could be an S3 bucket, an application load balancer, an EC2 instance, or even an external server outside of AWS. Next, you will see Origin Access. Origin Access controls who can access your origin directly. It decides whether users can reach your origin without going through CloudFront. Why is this important? If your origin, like an S3 bucket, is public, anyone can bypass CloudFront and access the files directly. That means no caching, no security rules, and no control. Origin Access helps you lock down your origin, so CloudFront becomes the only entry point. When you set up a CloudFront distribution, you'll see three main options for origin access. With the public option, the origin is open to everyone. CloudFront can reach it, but so can any user who knows the direct URL. This is the least secure choice and is usually only used for completely public content where security is not a concern. Origin access control is the newer and recommended method from AWS. When you enable origin access control, CloudFront signs each request to the origin using AWS Signature version 4. Your origin, such as an S3 bucket, can be set to block all public access and only accept signed requests from CloudFront. This ensures that no one can bypass CloudFront to access your content directly. Legacy access identities, which used to be origin access identities, is the older method that served the same purpose before origin access control was introduced. With origin access identities, CloudFront uses a special identity to access your S3 bucket. And you would grant read permissions to that identity in your bucket policy. It's still supported, but AWS recommends using origin access control for new distributions. To make it simple, we will choose the public option for this session. We already went through the custom header and origin shield. So let's skip and click Cancel, then go back to the distribution screen. Options we went through are very important to understand how CloudFront is configured and operated. So I recommend reviewing those options after the session. Once the deployment is complete, click on the distribution name and copy the distribution domain name. Open a new tab in your browser, paste the domain, and press Enter. You should see the same web page we created earlier using S3. Now let's test if CloudFront actually improves the loading speed. We will compare the performance between the S3 hosted website and the CloudFront website. Let's open the website hosted from S3. From the top search bar, type S3 and open the S3 service in a new tab. Select the same bucket, go to the Properties tab, scroll down and copy the static website hosting URL. Open a new tab in the browser, paste it, and open the page. Now you will have the same website open in two tabs, one from S3 and one from CloudFront. I am now using Chrome browser. Press F12 to open Developer Tools, then go to the Network tab. Make sure the red recording dot is active and check the box for Preserve Log. Right-click the refresh button and choose Empty Cache and Hard Reload. Repeat this 5 times. Then, sort the list by file name and check how long it took to load the file named car.jpg. You will see it took this amount of time to load the image file. Now let's do the same on the CloudFront tab. Repeat the process, press F12, check Network tab and Preserve Log, and 5 hard reloads. Again, sort by file name and check the time for car.jpg. You will see it took this amount of time to load the image file. Since the file is small, the difference may not be big. In most cases, CloudFront delivers your website and files much faster. That's because with S3 alone, every request has to go all the way to the S3 region, in this example, North Virginia. But with CloudFront, your files are cached at edge locations closer to your users, like in Seoul. This way, the website hosted from CloudFront loads faster and more efficiently. And that concludes the chapter. What we have learned here, using S3 and CloudFront together, is very common in real-world applications. So, understanding how to set up and optimize these services will help you build scalable and high-performing websites on AWS. In the next chapter, we will start configuring the network and the web server, which are the core of cloud infrastructure.